You have got to be kidding me. Poor old Joseph. After everything in that passage, I hope you read it or watched the dramatic reading. After everything he's forgotten about. The baker, the cupbearer come to him with these dreams. They sound pretty confusing, but God gives Joseph the meaning, the interpretation. And he tells them the meaning and it comes true. 3 days later, it ends badly for the baker, but well for the cupbearer. And he just asks the cupbearer, remember me. Tell Pharaoh about me. But no, he's forgotten about. So what's happened to God's promises? I mean, everything God told Joseph in the dreams that we looked at weeks ago. It's now 11 years since Joseph was thrown in the pit by his brothers. 11 years of waiting. What's happened to God's promises? It may feel that God's promises are ripped up and scattered. But actually, this passage shows us that despite what it looks like and what it might feel like, God's word is steadfast and sure. Steadfast and sure, which means that it will come true. God is in control. His promises will come true. How do we know that from the passage? Well, it does end badly with the cupbearer forgetting Joseph. But remember, God told Joseph the future. God gave these dreams to these two people and gave Joseph the ability to understand what they meant. God knew exactly what was going to happen in 3 days to the baker and the cupbearer. He knows exactly what was going to happen to them, which means he knows exactly what's going to happen to Joseph. He knows exactly what's going to happen to Joseph, and the same for you and me. You see, Joseph's sitting there, 11 years on from the pit, 11 years on from those dreams. But this passage is just a reminder to him that God does know the future. God is in control. See, Joseph's been waiting 11 years. I can't even wait 5 minutes if I'm promised something, especially if it's food. 11 years now he's been waiting for God's promises to come true. This gives a little glimpse that God is in charge of the future. It is working together for God's promises. You see, for you and for me, it may feel like life is messy and God's promises to us seem all over the place. The world is confusing. But we need to remember that God is in charge of the future. He knew what's going to happen in 3 days to the cupbearer and the baker. And he knows what's going to happen to us in 3 days and in 3 years. We may not understand fully until we get to heaven, but God is working everything back together to keep his promises to us. You see, we see in the Bible, in the whole Old Testament, that God gives loads of promises to his people. And then amazingly, we see Jesus, who comes and fulfills all those promises. It proves that God was true to his word. Jesus came and completed all those promises. And it means for us now, looking back at that, we know that God keeps his promises. God's word is steadfast and sure. We can trust God's promises. So however it feels, even if we've been in a prison 11 years on like Joseph, we know that God is in charge. God is in charge of the future. His promises will come true. It's such a big thing to know, and it feels like we might be saying similar things every week. But it's so important, especially now when things are chaotic, that God is in charge of the future, of your future and my future. And if we trust Jesus, we know that the God who is in charge of the future loves us and cares for us and wants what is good for us. So however it feels, God is in charge of the future. And his word is steadfast and sure.